Next up is the focus strategies, and this is simply where you're going for a particular niche. You can see the different ways that you can segment them on the slide, and the textbook does a nice job of talking about it. So, and companies are very successful with focus strategies by concentrating on any of these. Some of the things that are a little counterintuitive, you would think that it's clear that you could make money focusing on rich people. Can you make money focusing on poor people? You sure can. And I mean, you could argue it gets a little predatory, but I know some people that run finance companies that lend money to people who can't get bank loans. And it's a very lucrative business, provided you can manage your loss ratio. And if you think about, for example, Fred Loya Insurance in Texas, what do they sell? What do they advertise? State minimum coverage. So they've specialized in serving low-income people who can only afford the state minimum coverage. What's the challenge though of a focus strategy? If you're successful, you're faced with two basic challenges. One is if you're successful, people will decide to enter your market. An example of that is Whole Foods, who was a very successful niche strategy of focusing on people that wanted the organic, natural sorts of groceries. So Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, those kinds of people. Well, once it became apparent that people were willing to pay for that sort of things, what do you see? You see, even in Walmart, now they're beginning to stock organic and some of these things. And if you follow the financial performance of Whole Foods, they've struggled over the past several years in no small part because the big grocery industry has moved into that focus or that niche quite aggressively and are making it harder to compete there. So danger number one is that your niche is so successful that the big market players decide to come in. Danger number two is that you're so successful you decide to expand out of your niche because it's an obvious temptation. Hey, I'm great. Why don't I just start serving these people, and these people? That often, if you look at a lot of growth strategies, that's where it goes wrong for companies. They have a hard time serving a niche effectively. I'll give you an example of a company that has done it successfully, though, and that's Southwest Airlines. In the early stages, Southwest Airlines was focused on leisure travelers serving secondary markets. And today, they are a coast to coast airline that is targeting business travelers as well as leisure travelers and are in all the major markets and all the major airports. So they've done a nice job of expanding out, although they're not as profitable vis-a-vis their competitors as they once were. This next strategy we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about because where I was trying to tease you in the beginning is we can cast companies as cost leader, differentiation, but in reality there's a lot of shades of gray. There are companies that, and it's called the integrated cost leadership differentiation strategy because this is where you're either in differentiation and you're working to pull out cost and you maybe pull your product down slightly. More commonly, it's done from the bottom up, which is you start out with a cost leadership and then you start trying to infuse value into your product such that people are going to be willing to pay for it, but you do it in a very cost sensitive manner such that you increase your profit margins. And it just so happens, usually I can just naturally illustrate this one, but today I can't because my favorite brand, and probably the brand I'm the most loyal to, is Land's End. And to me, Land's End is the epitome of a company running an integrated strategy. So I've got monkey arms, and usually if I go to a department store, my shirt looks like that because they don't have a sleeve length. And it just so happens this is not a Land's End shirt. This is a department store shirt I was able to find at Joseph A. Bank. But from Land's End, I can order the exact sleeve length that I need, so all of my shirts fit. So there's value for me. I can get a dress shirt that fits. Can't get that anywhere else. Well, I pay a lot more to get it other places, is the bottom line. So they offer me the value of a dress shirt that fits, and yet they do it at a price point that I'm very happy with. And I'm going to date myself. I've been shopping at Land's End since well before the internet when you bought things out of a catalog. How does Land's End offer me this value, nice quality shirt for really the same price or even cheaper than I would buy it for in a department store? Well, they're a catalog and now online store only, so they don't have the bricks and mortars. It's interesting because for about 10 years, Sears owned Land's End, and I'm like, oh no, they're going to wreck this thing, and I'm going to have to go find something else. And then about a year and a half ago, they spun Land's End off, and it's been interesting to watch because Land's End is talking about opening some bricks and mortar stores, and they're also trying to move a little bit further up market with more design stuff. So I hope they don't mess that up because what they're doing is working for me. But what I want you to see is that a lot of companies really try to do this idea of offering a little bit above the on-par product in a way that attracts people. Some companies that you're probably very familiar with. Target. Target, I think, is one who's clearly trying to run an integrated strategy. Was working for a while, then it wasn't working, and now I think it's kind of back to working. So they're relying on their ability to be better merchandisers, pick things that people are really going to want, and then present them in the store in a way that's more attractive. Walmart instantly tried to do this in the late 2000s because Target was kind of kicking them through the strategy, and they were completely unable to copy this because they just didn't have the mindset of merchandising. The Walmart brand name is so closely associated with cost leadership that they weren't able to attract the designers, and they didn't do a good job of presenting them in the stores because it just wasn't the way Walmart does business. So it's not easy to get this right. However, when you get it right, it is probably the most powerful of all strategy because you literally have people buying your product, loving certain aspects of it, all the while going, I can't believe how cheap it is because look, it's the same price as that thing and that doesn't have nearly what I want. So that's the huge advantage. You build loyalty and yet you're so cost competitive that you can price it in a way that to people it's like it's a no-brainer. Of course I'm going to buy that. Well, what are the risks? The risks are that you try to put value into the shirt, or I'm sorry, into the product that either people don't perceive or it costs you too much money to make. And now you've got a product that they don't perceive as much better than the on-par product, but you're trying to charge a price that maybe is a little bit above the on-par product. And this is referred to as stuck in the middle. People will say this integrated strategy is the most difficult to carry out because you have no natural home. You're basically trying to drive right up the middle of the street with opposing traffic coming both ways. And so they think it's a balancing act. It's more difficult. But what you can see from this chart, contrary to what Mr. Porter says, when you do it well, it can be the most profitable position overall. You see the return on the investments is the highest for differentiation in cost, which is the integrated strategy. Let's wrap up with these two final topics. What's the internet done? The internet's done a couple of interesting things for business strategies. One is it's allowed disintermediation, so you can cut out middlemen, and it allows you typically to cut out cost because just some of the costs inherent in business previously are removed. It's also made niche markets a little bit more viable because the internet allows you a way to touch your customers. And so this is the theory of the long tail, that because people can find you on the internet by looking very specifically, you can afford to offer more mass customization of your products. The downside is, and obviously like Best Buy is live in this world, customers find it very easy to compare prices. There's, as you know, there's all kinds of apps where you can scan an SCU code and find out who's got it cheaper. So this idea of providing a little bit better service and people won't notice the price difference, boy, that's a bygone era. And so the general consensus is the internet has made it harder to compete. The last thing the textbook talks about, it does a great job of describing it, I'm not putting it down, but it's the industry life cycle. And basically it depicts it as this inexorable move from differentiation in the early days, and then it kind of becomes standard, and it's all about cost leadership, and then it's in decline. And there's a lot of truth in that. So for you, the strategist, the point is, don't let that happen to your company. So I've got two examples on the screen. Laundry detergent, how boring is that? And yet Tide came up with this idea of, which is Procter & Gamble company, of putting it into the pods, which was a fairly revolutionary thing, which really bolstered their sales of laundry detergent. It's also interesting because it did something good for the customer that most customers aren't aware of. Most customers, you get the jug where it says this is good for 50 washes. Nobody gets 50 washes out of it. Why? They put too much in. The pods take that away. But really, I think the crown champion for reinvigorating or reinventing the category has to go to Starbucks. We've been drinking coffee in this country for centuries, and yet Starbucks came and made it something special. And they did it through putting differentiation back into the product. So I share that with you just so you don't think that the industry life cycle is inevitable. So to sum up, strategies mean you're not just feeding at the trough. This is a way to move yourself to a position where your customers are going to have a specific reason to prefer your product, and then it's going to allow you to make the trade-offs in the value chain so that at the end of the day, you end up making more money than all your competitors. I encourage you not to think of these strategies so much as just absolute buckets, but as ways that perhaps we can mix and match, although there's nothing wrong with being hyper cost leader or hyper differentiation. As you go into BSG, there's going to be a temptation to think, boy, if I just find the right position, I'm going to be golden. I'll tell you right now, there is no golden position in the business strategy game. It's all about picking one, then making the right trade-offs and executing it well. Look forward to talking with you the next round.